Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. I see that everyone that is there, so we certainly appreciate this, and we appreciate this opportunity to be able to still host our council meeting and to be able to bring it to the public. We're just so thankful for that, and we're certainly thankful for this day. So at this time, I am calling the meeting to order, and I would like to call on Councilwoman Johnson to lead us with the invocation, and after that, she will also lead us with the pledge. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for allowing us to witness your presence again. Lord, bless this agenda for it to be fruitful and for the betterment of our citizens. Lord, let us be on one accord as we conduct the business of the great Positively Phenix City. Bless all those that make up our great city. And Lord, we ask that you continue to keep a shield of protection around us. We trust that you will deliver us from this pandemic and move us forward. Thank you, Lord, for being God all by yourself. Thank you for having mercy upon us. And oh Lord, we ask for a special blessing in a mighty way. Show us favor as we continue to go about the business of Phenix City. We ask these blessings among many in your holy and precious Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome.
Everyone can see the flag? Okay. Ms. Johnson.
Yes. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome.
We're going to go ahead and proceed on the City Clerk Council. At this time, I would like to call for a motion for the approval of the scheduled meeting minutes for the April the 20th work session, as well as April the 21st council meeting. And at the pleasure of the council, we will take this in one vote. May I have a motion to approve those meetings?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Day. May we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Lee?
Yes. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lowe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Proceeding on the City Council. Council, at this time, are there any unfinished business?
There be none, Mayor.
There not being any, we will proceed on the resolutions and on the administration. The first resolution is a public hearing and resolution in reference to making application to the Bureau of Justice Assistance for the coronavirus emergency supplemental funding program fiscal year 2020, formula grant for financial assistance to the police department. Council, at this time, I would like to call for a public hearing of anyone that would like to come and address this council in this matter in reference to this application. I am going to do it, ask the citizen of anyone out there that does want to step forward to call this number at the city, and I will put it on the speaker for all council members to hear. That number for the citizens is 334-448-2704. That's to the office that I'm sitting in. And to the public, this will be on the speakerphone where hopefully all our council members can hear you. If there's anyone that would like to step forward and call this number, again, the number is 334-448-2704. And I am calling this public hearing to be open for call-ins on that phone number. Can you all hear that, Council, when I turn the volume up?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this public hearing is open and that through our phone call at this number, 334-448-2704. And if there's anyone that'd like to call in reference to this public hearing, in reference to this grant, now is the time to do so.
Mayor, if I could, this is Chief Smith. I would go ahead and give you some background while we're waiting on any phone calls that may come in.
Okay.
The public is invited to make inquiries about this grant. This grant is a supplemental grant that's going to help us recover from the coronavirus emergency. We spent a considerable amount of money on personal protective equipment, as well as done some upgrading to our computer systems, communication systems, and things like that, that this money will help pay for. We'll have a couple of items later in the agenda that this coronavirus money is going to help pay for, and we'll have additional items coming up in subsequent grants. So even if we have no one that wants to call in now, I want the public to know that they can call my office, they can call the city manager's office, and request further information about this. Also make any recommendations on what the city should use the funding for. The funding was a direct grant from the federal government to the city, and it was based on our population, and it's right at $72,000. The county also had a supplemental funding as well, so they'll have a separate pot of money that they'll be able to mitigate their damages from the coronavirus emergency as well. So that's what this is, public hearing is about. It's to give the public, number one, an opportunity to voice any input that they may have on how those funding should be spent, as well as to kind of let the public know what we as a city are going to use those funds for moving forward. And we'll have this grant applied for by the end of the month. And again, the comment period will be open through the 29th of this month. So even if they don't call in today, they can call my office, call the city manager's office from now to the end of the month with any recommendations that they may have or something that they may know about that we should consider.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Smith. Again, I just want to reiterate what he has stated, is that even though we are opening this public hearing through the phone line at that number, but if no one responds today as far as this public hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, you have up until the 29th of this month to either call the city manager or either call Chief Ray Smith in reference to this.
Yes, sir.
Because again, this grant will be applied for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, at the end of this month. So that's the reason why we are extending this public hearing up until the 29th of this month.
That's
so
correct.
Since no one has called in, I am declaring this portion of the public hearing through phone now closed. However, I want to caveat that and say that we do have up until the 29th for phone calls to either, again, the city manager, Wallace Hunter, either or Chief Ray Smith. But at this time, Council, I am closing this portion of the public hearing via phone. And at this time, I would like to call on the clerk for the reading of this resolution. Mrs. Lee.
Whereas the United States Federal Government Bureau of Justice Assistance for the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program Solicitation Fiscal Year 2020 Formula Grant Solicitation under the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Street Act of 1986 and other appropriate federal laws have made available $71,450 in funds for local solicitation. And whereas the Phenix City Police Department, hereinafter referred to as applicant, is of the opinion that it would be beneficial to make application for such assistance. And whereas said applicant agrees to be accountable for providing the cash match towards the total cost of said project. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, that the mayor and city manager as authorizing officials and Raymond J. Smith as chief of police are hereby authorized and directed to make application to the Bureau of Justice Assistance Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program Fiscal Year 2020 Formula Grant Solicitation for said financial assistance. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May 2020.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. Council, we've all heard the reading of the resolution. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion for approval, please. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion, Mr. Bailey. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Johnson. Council, any comments or discussion? Okay, if not, at this time, council, like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, council, on the resolution and administrations, we have a resolution in reference to authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement with Lee County Commission acting on behalf of Lee County for the development of subdivisions within the territorial jurisdiction of the Municipal Planning Commission. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phenix City and Lee County have been operating under the legislature passed in 2012, Alabama Act 2012-297, which essentially made it where the county's subdivision regulations solely apply outside the corporate limits of cities unless the county and the city enter into a written agreement. And whereas Lee County and Phenix City have collaborated on drafting an agreement where the Municipal Planning Commission shall be responsible for the regulation and enforcement of the development of subdivisions within the territorial jurisdiction of the Municipal Planning Commission. And whereas the said agreement has been presented to the Phoenix City Planning Commission and has been approved and is being recommended for approval by the City Council. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Phoenix City, Alabama does hereby approve and authorize the mayor and city manager to sign an agreement with the Lee County Commission acting on behalf of Lee County. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Council, we've all heard the resolution. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion, Mr. Day. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gordon. Okay, any comments or discussion? Okay, Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, proceeding on, council, on the resolution and on the administration is a resolution in reference to allowing a nonprofit food bank beyond expectation community outreach to operate at 1101 First Place South in an R2 medium density residential zone for a period not to exceed 6 months during the COVID-19 recovery. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas on March 13th, 2020, Governor Kay Ivey declared a state of public health emergency based on the appearance of the 2019 novel coronavirus known as COVID-19 in the state of Alabama. And whereas that initial proclamation included provisions designed to assist in preventing the spread of COVID-19 and mitigating the consequences of COVID-19. And whereas new implications of COVID-19 come to light on a continual basis, requiring flexibility and adaptability by all levels of government within the state of Alabama. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Phoenix City, Alabama, that the city wishes to allow Beyond Expectations Community Outreach, a nonprofit food bank, to operate at 1101 First Place South in an R2 medium density residential zone for a period not to exceed 6 months during the COVID-19 recovery. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Okay. Council, we have all heard the reading of the resolution. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
All right, motion, Mrs. Johnson. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, council, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Lee, you have that?
Yes.
So at this time, are there any comments or discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Some of our citizens might not be aware of what that address is located or where the building is located at. Will you just elaborate on yourself or have somebody elaborate on, tell them exactly where it's located at?
All right, Gil.
Yes, this is going to be located directly behind Greater Mount Zion Church. That's located on Seal Road. It's just one block behind there. It's a duplex sitting on itself, but on an empty block.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
May
Any
I
other-
have a question? Yes, please. How does the community or anyone like myself, you or anybody, any of us, how do we donate to this, or can we donate to this particular thing? How do you go about doing that in case there's anybody in our community that wants to help out with the cost of this?
Just contact that address there, or go by there, or I can get the person who's running it. It is a nonprofit that's for a specific reason based on helping people meet the needs, essential needs of food. And that's why it's gone, the exception is 6 months. So, and Griffith, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason why this is 6 months is to give them time to make sure that it's done in the correct zone of being rezoned. But based on the verbiage and the language that the governor, which this resolution is following, based on, as I stated yesterday, the mission critical times there are as far as people needing food at this time, and a lot of people not working. That's why this is done this way. But Steve, to answer your question, you can contact Greater Mount Zion or this organization. I do not know the people who is running this, but you can contact the church as far as that.
Mayor,
Okay, that's what I was wanting to know, right, to be sure to tell. I've had some people ask me how they could donate to different things of this nature. When you see it on TV, you see the need is very, very large, very important. And so I would like to know, so Greater Mount Zion Church, if I have them get in touch with them, they can tell them the location right behind them, or either maybe give them a website to go to, or they can maybe use a credit card or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Gil?
yeah, Mayor, I do have contact information. I'll get that to Melanie
okay.
and distribute it
Okay.
out, if that's okay.
Well, Steve, you hear that? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Gil.
You welcome.
Good. It is.
And lastly, Mayor, I would just like to say thank you to Beyond Expectation Community Outreach for having the insight to do something like this. You know, this pandemic, of course, is affecting us in a lot of different ways. So we thank them for having the mindset to want to give back in such a mighty way. So thank you to those executives and personnel that allowed this to happen in our community. We are so blessed.
Yeah, and let me say this too. We all need to thank our city manager and Gil for being able to come up with this, to draft this, so we can stay in compliance of what we're doing from the state down. Otherwise, this would not be taking place. Okay, we all need to know that because this council has been consistent. But I just want to thank the city manager and Gil for being able to come up with this, to draft this, because we do know the mission critical needs now with food shortages and with people not and working, and this is an essential need. So we need to make sure that we are mindful of that, and everybody in this community needs to be mindful of that, because of being able to be creative in doing this. And that's the reason why the 6 months give them time to be able to rezone or do the zoning if that's what they would like to do. But again, we need to thank our city manager and Gil for working extremely hard in this, because it is a need. Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor, I like to ask this question. Are there any one of the qualifications are going to be in need for food, but there are any folks, like qualifications coming from Harrisburg, Pittsburgh? It doesn't matter where a citizen come from, as long as they need food. Is that right?
It does not matter, because needs are needs, and it's
okay.
people. So they're not going to ask where you from, or there's not any criteria other than a need. Needs are needs. So that's the way this organization is being run. Okay. If there's no other questions or comment, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lowe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the police department is a resolution in reference to authorizing and directing the mayor, the city manager, the chief of police to sign a contract agreement with Carfax to subscribe to Carfax investigation tools. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phoenix City desires to enter into an agreement with Carfax, an online reporting system. Carfax allows the agency to subscribe in exchange for motor vehicle accident report data created or collected by agency to the Carfax investigative tools. And whereas the city council has reviewed said agreement submitted by Carfax. And whereas the city council finds the agreement to be a necessity for the day-to-day operations of city business. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Phoenix City, Alabama, that the mayor, city manager, and chief of police are hereby authorized and directed to sign such agreement with Carfax to subscribe to the Carfax investigative tools. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Okay. Council, we've heard the reading of the resolution. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve. May I have a motion,
Motion
please?
to approve.
Motion, Mr. Dave. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Was that Steve?
Second, yeah.
Okay. We have the motion by Mr. Day and the second by Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Any comments or discussion?
Yes, Mayor, on yesterday, the chief elaborated on those items for us yesterday. I would like for him to elaborate on them for the citizen of Phoenix City. This is important too, and something we really need.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Day and Mayor and Council, thank you very much for allowing us to work with these next 3 resolutions. The first one that we just read was the Carfax one. What this would allow us to do is to share our crash data with Carfax. And typically Carfax gets it anyway, but they have to go through a different process to purchase that data. But through this agreement, we'll be able to share our data with them, and at the same time, then we'll be able to gain the information that they collect from other agencies throughout the country. What this does is allows us to further our investigative systems to search for stolen property, stolen cars, boats, other equipment. Carfax, as many people know, is also made available to the public for a fee. You can call and purchase Carfax reports on specific vehicles. That lets you know if that vehicle's ever been involved in a traffic accident, what work it's been done on it in maintenance shops or even body shops, as well as if it ever had been stolen before and recovered. So this is actually very good information for the public. And so because of the sharing of data, there will be no cost involved with this, but it does allow the Carfax, of course, to make money by selling those reports to the public if people so choose to buy those reports. But that's where they get the data from. And just to save time, I'll go ahead and talk about the next 2 that are on the resolution that the mayor's fixing to go through. The next one is a software module that will interface into our current public safety data system, that COP Logic interface, and it'll cost us $8,082.60. We'll use the aforementioned coronavirus grant monies to pay for that. And what that'll do is that'll allow us to interface both with Carfax and with the resolution under C, which is LexisNexis. LexisNexis is another online reporting tool that we will share data with. And that one is used mostly by insurance companies to purchase crash data for their policyholders. And LexisNexis last year sold about 1,100 accident reports from our department. With this agreement, this will actually allow us to recover a percentage of that money that they use to sell those crash data reports to insurance companies to make claims. On an average year, we average about 2,500 crashes per year, and about 1,100 of those are handled through LexisNexis, because again, when you have an accident, generally you don't always have an accident real close to home. Half of our accidents are from people from out of town that we're having to work wrecks for. So this allows them to do business over the internet and not have to come back to Phoenix City to get the information that they need to file their claim. So this is a win-win, both for the department as well as for the public. This is some of the things that we've been looking forward to doing anyway. This coronavirus pandemic money will allow us to interface a lot more in the coming months. That'll help make us more efficient, as well as making us more accessible to the public, even the public that doesn't live here locally. The other good thing about this is that it will not impact the local citizens, because the local citizens will still be able to get their reports in person for a nominal fee of just $2. They won't have to go through LexisNexis to purchase these reports. Those reports will be mainly purchased from folks that are not local to us, and that little convenience fee it'll be $15 to go through that versus a local fee of $2. That $15 is a convenience fee to allow them to get that data, because I'm sure it'll cost them a lot more to have to travel back to Phenix City than $15 to get that information. So that's a way for us to both pay for the system as well as make it more accessible to the community. So we'll look forward to some more of these in the next coming council meetings. We'll have other communication as well as reporting data that we'll introduce into the department, and these things will serve us even after the pandemic. It'll make us much more efficient, and those will all be in place and help funded by the coronavirus grant.
Thank you, Chief, for elaborating that for our citizens on that, brother, for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments? If not, at this time, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, council on the police department is a resolution in reference to authorizing and directing the mayor, city manager, chief of police to sign a contract agreement with Spielman CopLogic Interface for an online reporting system in an amount not to exceed $8,782.60. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phenix City desires to enter into an agreement with Spielman CopLogic Interface, an online reporting system. Spielman CopLogic Interface allows citizens to file non-urgent and non-critical reports online. And whereas the city council has reviewed an agreement submitted by Spielman CopLogic Interface of $8,782, and whereas the city council finds the agreement to be a necessity for the day-to-day operations of city business. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council of the city of Phenix City, Alabama does hereby authorize the mayor, city manager, and chief of police to sign an agreement with Spielman CopLogic Interface for an online reporting system in an amount not to exceed $8,782.60, passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. Council, we've heard the resolution. I'd like to ask for a motion for approval, please. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion, Mr. Day. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gordy. And the chief has explained it, so
Yes.
I'm not going to ask for any comments or discussion, but at this time, I would like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, proceeding on the Police Department Council, we have a resolution in reference to authorizing and directing the mayor, the city manager, and the chief of police to enter into an agreement with LexisNexis for an online desktop reporting system. Mrs. Lee.
Yes. Whereas the city of Phenix City desires to enter into an agreement with LexisNexis, an online desktop reporting system. LexisNexis allows citizens to request a copy of their police report. And whereas the city council has reviewed and said agreement submitted by LexisNexis, and whereas the city council finds the agreement to be a necessity for the day-to-day operations of city business. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council of the city of Phenix City, Alabama does hereby authorize and direct the mayor and city manager and chief of police to sign an agreement with LexisNexis for an online desktop reporting system, passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Okay. Council, we have all heard the resolution. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Motion to,
Motion, Mr. Gordy, and that's the second, Mrs. Johnson.
yes, thank you.
Okay, Melanie, we have that. Mr. Gordy, motion, Mrs. Johnson, the second. I'm not going to ask for any comments since the chief has explained it, but at this time, council would like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, council, on the Utilities Department. We have a resolution in reference to the Municipal Water Pollution Prevention, MWPP, for the 2019 annual report. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phenix City, Alabama is required by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management to file a municipal water pollution prevention annual report for our wastewater treatment plant. And whereas the city has prepared the report as required by ADEM, and whereas the report has been reviewed as required by the city's consulting engineer, Constantine Engineering. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama accepts the 2019 annual MWPP report and authorizes the Utility Department to file the report with ADEM. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lee. Council, we've heard the resolution. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion, Mr. Day. May I have a second? May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Okay. Comments or discussion, council? Okay. If not, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, okay.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And proceeding on the Utilities Department, council, is a resolution in reference to accepting a proposal from American Tank Maintenance and authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement for the professional tank maintenance services. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phenix City, Alabama was in need of professional maintenance services. And whereas the city of Phenix City, Alabama has received a proposal from American Tank Maintenance to refurbish, paint, and maintain the city's 5 above-ground storage tanks. And whereas the city of Phenix City, Alabama would like for American Tank Maintenance to perform the work based on option number 1 in the attached proposal. And whereas with financing of the refurbishing work began financed over an 8-year period and maintenance contracted for 5 years with an option for 5 additional years in accordance with city policy and state law. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama hereby accepts the proposal and authorizes the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement with American Tank Maintenance based on option number 1 in the attached proposal. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Okay. Council, we've all heard the resolution. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to
Motion
approve.
to approve.
Motion, Mr. Gordy, and second, Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
We have that, Melanie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, any comments or discussion? Okay. If not, at this time, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And proceeding on, council on the Utilities Department, we have a resolution in reference to authorizing the mayor, city manager to accept a work order from Peoples and Quickly Incorporation for professional engineering services for the 2020 AEMA grant in an amount not to exceed $8,500. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Whereas the city of Phenix City, Alabama operates a wastewater collection, WWC, system, and whereas the city of Phenix City is under a consent order from the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, ADEM, for sanitary sewer overflow, SSOs, which the city is working to reduce. And whereas the wastewater collection, WWC, system has 33 sanitary lift stations that pump sanitary sewage and operate with electrical power except when the normal electrical power supply is interrupted, in which case the lift stations cannot operate unless they have emergency power generators, and without power to a lift station, eventually an SSO will occur. And whereas the Alabama Emergency Management Agency AEMA, in conjunction with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has grant funds for electrical power generators for which the Utilities Department wishes to apply to purchase emergency power generators for the WWC system lift stations. And whereas Peoples and Quigley Incorporated has submitted a work order in an amount not to exceed $8,500 without prior authorization to provide engineering assistance for the AEMA generator grant application, revisions to the existing hazard mitigation plan, design, construction, administration, and funding administration for the generator project if the grant is awarded. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama does hereby direct and authorize the mayor and city manager to accept such work order from Peebles and Quigley Incorporated for professional engineering services for the 2020 AEMA grant in an amount not to exceed $8,500. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lee. Council, we've heard the resolution. May I have a motion for approval, please?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Mrs. Johnson. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Day.
Yes.
Comments or discussion, council?
Yes, sir. Mayor, I noticed, I like to say this to Mr. Hunter as well as his staff. I notice every time we seek after something, we have, it's very important to see every department in our city to seek after the grants. And that's a great thing to, to save the city revenue. And I noticed that Mr. Hunter has his staff doing a great job. And that's in every department, police, utility, park and rec, just about every department in our city. And that's very, very good. Save the citizen and the city money. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, discussion, council?
If I could, Mayor, just 1 second. Yesterday we discussed that we have a few of these generators already working at some of the lift stations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we have, I'm assuming probably 27 to 30 that probably don't have it. Well, all these with this grant, are we planning on buying one for all of them that we are thinking that we're going to need them, or do we buy them as we need, or do we take some out of service? Like the lift station, I believe in Saddlebrook is going to be taken out when we put the new line in over towards Pioneer Drive. Would they be used on other lift stations in the future? How does that work, Mr. Smith?
We don't currently have a generator there at Saddlebrook, and that's one of the reasons we're working on trying to get that out, put that on a gravity line. The older lift stations that we have, when it built years ago, they just didn't put generators at. Newer lift stations, as they come online, the new one up on Sunville Road, the new one up at River Chase Drive, the 29th Street lift station that we rebuilt recently. Our policy is to put generators at those stations, but all of your older ones don't. We do have some very small lift stations that don't really require emergency generators because we have the ability to go in and maintain those, with our people. But all your larger lift stations, particularly down in the industrial park and other areas, we spend a considerable amount of money every year having to have those pumped out and when we get electrical problems. And this will protect us. It will save us a very considerable amount of money that we spend on a yearly basis having to pay to have those stations pumped out when they're not, when electricity fails on them. And so all of your larger lift stations, and we've got about 12 or 15 of those that really justify and need electrical generators at, and that's where we'll be looking to get the grant funds to supply the generators at those stations.
So what you're saying basically is we got a need for so many now, and y'all know what that need is, and you're correct on that. But if we need any after that point, we can get those as we go along, is what you're saying, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir. And as we build new lift stations or developers build them when they build, we're requiring now that they put generators in place.
Good. Like the one up there, just say isn't there the lift station up there by Rock Island Ridges that the developer had to put in? Would that be one that would have a generator on it?
Now that Rock Island Ridges, the apartment complex that you're talking about, yes, sir, we did require them to put a generator at that location.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to make sure that that developers aren't putting them in as they go along in the city. If we, as we need them, we, we fix those situations. And like you said yesterday, I understand completely that a lot of the lift stations will never need them, and that's perfectly understandable. I just was trying to wrap my mind around, we have 33 lift stations basically ourselves, and I just, didn't want the public thing that we're just running out and doing all 33 of them when we don't have a need maybe for 33 of them. So that was kind of what, and you answered that perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve Smith and Steve Bailey. At this time, council, are there any other comments? If not, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the ordinance, council, we have a public notice and first reading. The first one is an ordinance to exempt certain items from the municipal sales and use tax during the third full weekend of July 2020, referred to as the back to school sales tax holiday. This is a first reading. So at this time, I'd like to call upon the clerk for the first reading of this ordinance. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. An ordinance of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, to exempt certain covered items from the municipal sales and use tax during the third full weekend of July 2020, as authorized by Act 2017-120, generally referred to as the new back-to-school state sales tax holiday. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, as follows. Section 1. In conformity with the provisions of Act 2017-120, enacted by the Alabama Legislature during the 2017 regular session, providing for a state sales tax holiday, the City of Phenix City, Alabama exempts covered items from municipal sales and use tax during the same period beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, July the 17th, 2020, and ending at 12 midnight, Sunday, July the 19th, 2020. Section 2. This ordinance shall be subject to all terms, conditions, definitions, time periods, and rules as provided by Act 2017-120. Section 3. The city clerk of the City of Phenix City, Alabama is hereby authorized and directed to certify a copy of this ordinance under the seal of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, and to forward said certified copy to the Alabama Department of Revenue to be recorded and posted on the department website. Section 4. This ordinance shall become effective upon publication in the Citizen of East Alabama. Passed, approved, and adopted this 5th day of May, 2020.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Lee.
Yes.
Council, we've heard the first reading. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to place on first reading. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to place on first reading.
Motion, Mr. Day. May I have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second, Mr. Gordon. Ms. Johnson? Who was Miss?
Either.
Okay.
I think it was me and Mr. Bailey, but I'm okay with whichever way it falls.
And I was, okay. Was it Mr. Bailey or Gordon?
Miss Johnson, give it to her.
Okay, Ms. Johnson. I thought it was Mr. Gordon, but Ms. Johnson, that's the second.
Yes.
Have that, Melanie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, council, I'd like to call for the vote. Mrs. Lee?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also on the ordinance council, there's a public notice and ordinance to amend the code of ordinance for the City of Phenix City, Alabama. Appendix A, zoning, Article 6, regulations applying to all of several districts. Section 19, signs and outdoor advertising. Add political signs. This is the first reading. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, in response to a request made by the Planning Commission of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, will meet on the 2nd day of June 2020 at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the City Council Chambers, Public Safety Building, Phenix City, Alabama, to consider the following amendment to the zoning ordinance of the City of Phenix City, Alabama. An ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances for the City of Phenix City, Alabama, Appendix A, zoning, Article 6, regulations applying to all or several districts. Section 19, signs and outdoor advertising. Add political signs. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Phenix City, Alabama, that Appendix A, zoning, Article 6, regulations applying to all or several districts. Section 19, signs and outdoor advertising, be amended to add political signs. Section 19, signs and outdoor advertising. Political signs. Signs may not be placed earlier than 30 days prior to the election date. Signs may not be placed in the public right-of-way, on any structures in the right-of-way, including utility poles and traffic signs, in road medians, or in any property owned by the City of Phenix City or Phenix City Schools. Signs are limited in size to a maximum of 32 square feet. It is the candidate's responsibility to ensure that the volunteers who distribute and erect political signs are doing so in compliance with these regulations. Signs must be removed within 7 days after the election. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed by this ordinance. At said meeting, all persons desiring to be heard concerning the amendment to the zoning ordinance may appear before the council at the aforementioned time and place to be heard. Passed and adopted this 5th day of May 2020.
Okay, council, we've heard the public notice and first reading. At this time, council, I would like to call for a motion to approve the public notice first.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Day. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gordon. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, council, also at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to place on first reading. So may I have a motion to place on first reading, please?
Motion to place on first reading.
All right, motion by Mr. Gordon. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Was that Mr. Bailey or Mr. Day?
Mr.
Day.
Yeah.
All right, have the motion second. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordy,
Yes.
Mayor Lo.
Yes.
Thank you.
May I ask a question on that, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I was looking at this, it says the second day of June at the Public Safety Building in the council chambers. What if we still up under the social districting by then? How does that gonna work?
We'll just, correct me if I'm wrong, city manager or Melanie, that we'll just have to do it the way we're doing it now. Through phones, it still have to be done that way.
Does that need to be put into the things that Melanie has to advertise in case?
Yes,
Every
that will, after the 15th of what, depends
Right,
on what
May.
the governor says, then the adjustment would be made by the city clerk on how this is going to play out.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure that was clarified. Where if it did change, that the advertiser will reflect that. Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, council. We appreciate it. At this time, council, is there anything anyone like to say? Any comments? Okay, if not, I am at this time, city manager, anything you want to add to take away?
You all made comments earlier about lift stations. I would like Mr. Smith to go back and really explain that. We talked about the particular one in an apartment area. What we're experiencing is growth throughout our city. As they add these additional apartments or subdivisions, that put more pressure on the system that's already exists. So we have policy and procedures as far as the one that's up there off River Chase. And we also have a new upgraded on 29th Street, but we still have some problems in between and with some calls for some of the residents from time to time, and they're still trying to work that out. But the facts are throughout history with lift stations, we have a lot of storms, and storms and lightning have a tendency to knock off the electricity. With having these generators, that allows these lift stations to still function. So we won't have waste just sitting in different areas. But also, as they add these additional ones, it's not just the complexes there, but Steve, explain the surcharge that we do in this particular area.
Sure. We changed our policies several years ago that new lift stations, particularly commercial, they have to have generators with them when they're built. And in addition to that, once we take over a commercial lift station, that's one for a commercial business or a multifamily apartment complex, we impose a 5% surcharge on the sewer bills for them for us to maintain those stations in the future, which help, offset some of the cost of electrical costs and other things that are involved in maintaining those. All lift stations of any size in the future, we will require the developers, as they put them in, to install generators. They just didn't do this in the past. When lift stations were built 20 years ago, that was just not part of the standard, not part of the requirements. But it really is something that's needed by the city. And like I said, we spend a considerable amount of money every year when power goes out at a particular area, having to pay for these larger lift stations to be pumped out. So this will save the city. Of course, the grant funds are terrific in terms of being able to get the generators through grant funds, but it will save the city in ongoing maintenance costs in the future. It just something that, like I said, as you go through the years and you grow, as Mr. Hunter has said, you adopt newer standards that meet the modern situation that you have here. And we're always trying to improve and adapt our standards so that we can provide better service to our citizens.
And not only that, the technology that goes along with them, so you can check on these things in different areas. That helps a whole lot. I want to say one other thing, Mayor, before I go. I want to thank all the department heads for working as hard as they are. There's a lot of people out here that's trying to do things for people as we go through this pandemic. And I hope people understand this is a gut check time for a lot of people. I believe God is looking down on us and he expects us to do certain things. Anybody that's in this for a pat on the back is functioning in the wrong capacity. We all have a lot to do. We should, like I say, respect each other, try to help each other out, and try to keep as much turmoil away from what we are doing right now for the public as possible. I would just ask everybody to think about a lot of things. Everything don't always run smoothly. We want it to, but as the day go by, different things happen. So we just pray that we can have good days amongst each other and pray for all the families that's losing loved ones, and for the recovery of people that's out there that's trying to recover from this, and praying for a vaccine and hoping that people can just keep their minds steady, because it's a lot of pressure on people at this time. The fallout from this particular thing, and as we go through it, is tremendous. And I don't think a lot of people know that. So sometimes you're putting pressure on other people. You never know what they're going through. And it's a lot of people that's going through things. So if you can, and any of the people that you're in contact with, just ask people to be as kind as possible and think twice before they start putting so much on another person. Thank you all.
Thank you, City Manager. And again, we will get more clarity on the 15th from Governor Ivey. And let me say this, is that we are following exactly what's come down from the state. So, the rules that we're enforcing them based on the guidelines and policy and procedures from the state. So with that said, Council, we thank you all so much.
Can I say something about South Railroad Street road closure?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Angel. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, and we've put out some public service announcements, but we have a storm drainage pipe failure on South Railroad Street in between Stadium Drive and the bypass bridge. We will be shutting down that portion of South Railroad Street beginning tomorrow morning. We're hoping the work can be completed in 1 to 2 weeks, but we are going to have to remove that existing steel pipe up under South Railroad Street, put in a new pipe, and construct a curb inlet there. So we would appreciate everyone, taking the detour routes. We will have detour signs up. I specifically say detour for South Railroad Street because We have the detour set up for Opelika Road Bridge project also. So I know that's going to be an inconvenience for people, but it's something that we've got to get taken care of because the road is starting to fail in that area.
Yes.
Angel, could I say something while this? I don't want to hit you from the blind side on this particular thing while we're talking about Railroad Street. And I want the public to know Railroad Street is, we're trying to repair it in certain areas, but we also have grants, and that's another street road that we are waiting on to resurface from Somerville Road all the way out to basically Lakewood Drive or the Walmart area. But, you know, with all the things that's going on, that's been pushed back some, and we're waiting on the state and going through that procedure. Am I correct in that, Angel?
Yes, sir. I talked to the railroad division of ALDOT yesterday. They haven't heard anything back from the railroad, but according to our contacts at ALDOT, it's scheduled to let in August, pending those agreements coming back.
And that's another part of a over $2 million grant that we've
Yes.
got.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. We appreciate you jumping in on that and letting the public know.
Yes, sir.
But again, thanks to the council. Thank you all so very much. We'd like to thank CTV Bean for bringing this to our citizens. And again, let's continue to unite as we should, and let's get through this thing together, and it too shall pass. So with that, we pray that everything for Phenix City continue to move in a positive way. But that's dependent upon us as the leaders of this community, as well as the people in this community. Thank you all so very much, and let us all have a great day. Thank you.